Recently, the Clarion Project received documents showing the President Bush, was scheduled to meet with Islamists linked to the Muslim Brotherhood on 9/11, demonstrating that the Brotherhood was indeed successful in gaining access to the Oval Office and high-ranking members of our government before the World Trade Center came down. Here to discuss and how it relates to what we recently told you about Grover Norquist is Ryan Mauro. He is the national security expert with the Clarion Project. Ryan, let's talk about, first of all, these documents. I'm here with these documents. The revised private schedule of the President and Mrs. Bush. This is from Tuesday, September 11th, and this is amazing. It shows they are supposed to be at that elementary school, then fly back. At 2 o'clock, they have a pre-brief for the Muslim leader meeting. And then at 3:05 and 3:20, with Karl Rove in the Oval Office, they meet with the leaders. Can you tell me who these guys are?
Yeah, definitely. Over at the Clarion Project, where we have the full expose, we go through each of the 16 attendees that were scheduled to meet with President Bush. He was first supposed to meet with 6 Muslim and Arab supporters, as they described them, people who donated to the campaign, people who helped him win the campaign. And of those first 6, every single one has some connection to the Muslim Brotherhood network, and specifically the groups that are connected to Al-Amoudi, Sami Al-Arian, the folks that you've been talking about a lot over the past week. Then there was supposed to be a second meeting with a total of 16 people, including the original 6. And of those 16, 14 of them also have links to this Brotherhood political influence network, including Omar Ahmed of CARE, a leader from ISNA, and the list goes on and on. And Karl Rove was supposed to attend that meeting. There were 7 additional White House officials. 3 of those White House officials involved in this meeting with Islamists came from Norquist's organization. On the attendee side, 3 of the attendees came from Norquist's organization. So you can see the influence of his group on the Bush administration on that day with just these few documents.
Okay, is there any doubt in your mind that Grover Norquist is either a willing or unwitting agent of influence?
Definitely not, because when you look at our expose, we first begin the story with really the broader issue here that we need to focus on, which is the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood and Sami Al-Arian, Al-Amoudi, convicted terrorists, set up, according to FBI documents, Muslim Brotherhood documents, this operation to influence politics, to get to the top leaders of both political parties. And from that basis is where you can see why this is so important for us to discuss and look at. Now, in your interview with Grover, one of the ways he defended himself was that he was saying that his Muslim partners that he proclaimed were moderate put together this trip to Auschwitz and got Muslim leaders together to condemn anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial.
Correct.
If you look at that statement that he was using to defend himself and his Muslim partners, 5 of the 8 have radical backgrounds, including links to the Muslim Brotherhood. So after all this is out there, after all this information is out there, he is still promoting these Islamist radicals as moderates, and he did it on your show.
Ryan, why is nobody talking out about this? How does Grover Norquist get away with this for so long?
I think a lot of it just comes down to hyperpartisanship. And I see this on both sides of the political aisle when we document this. If you're talking about how the Republican Party is getting advice or working with Islamist figures that they shouldn't be, then you'll have that side saying, oh, you're a sellout, or I don't really believe it. They demand an unreasonable amount of proof. And then when you do the same thing for President Obama, such as with his Countering Violent Extremism Summit, which we did another expose on, you get the same type of reaction. You say, oh, well, this is all Islamophobia. This is right-wing extremism. And so I think the biggest problem here is that hyper-partisan mindset.
What's your feeling on Karl Rove and how involved he is? I mean, I've made up my mind. Everybody has to make up their own mind, but I just don't find it plausible that Grover Norquist started something where he said his goal was to get the bad guys out, and then he lines himself with every bad guy known to mankind. It just doesn't. It doesn't hold any water. However, Karl Rove has not started anything for bad guys. Karl Rove is a guy who just cares about getting elected and making money. What are the odds Karl Rove doesn't know who these people are?
I think it's very possible he doesn't know. I do remember that there was an interview that he gave in regards to how the Bush administration was upholding some of these radicals as moderates after 9/11, and he indicated that he didn't know. And that's what makes this so difficult. It's difficult to know who knows the backgrounds of these individuals and who doesn't. But for me, the bottom line is that when you look at these documents, what you see is Karl Rove was supposed to attend this meeting with President Bush with very radical people. That was documented at the time. And we've got to figure out, for the sake of our national security, how does that happen? How is it that you can have figures with documented radical backgrounds, links to the Muslim Brotherhood, get political access like that all the way at the top to specifically advance their pet issues, which is also discussed in the documents, the different things that they wanted to talk about, different counterterrorism measures, Middle East policy, and that's just frightening that they can get to that level.
I have some of the people that were part of this, and these are Grover Norquist people. One of them is Saeed Seed, former ISNA Secretary General. Can you tell me a little bit about him and what he said in 2006?
Right. He was actually recorded saying, "Our job is to change the Constitution of America." And ISNA, for those that don't know, they hold these very radical conferences where the speakers are Islamists, and federal prosecutors not only label them an unindicted co-conspirator, which a lot of people know, but they also specifically said this is a U.S. Muslim Brotherhood entity.
How about the Imam Web? Tell me about him.
He is a former leader of the Islamic Society of Boston. He's made various extremist statements, and that mosque was founded by Al-Amudi. And by the way, the two individuals that you just mentioned were signatories to that letter that Grover was referring to on your program, saying, look, this is proof that I work with moderate Muslims.
And Yasser, is it Kadhi?
Yes. And this is a good one, because remember in your interview and in the beginning, he said that his goal was to promote a moderate version of Islam, one that was compatible with free market and capitalist values. Well, this individual who signed that statement actually said that Islam demolishes American capitalism. So to your earlier point, he says that he wanted to promote a moderate pro-capitalist version of Islam, yet the people who funded his organization in the beginning and that he continues to promote to this day stand for the exact opposite.
Tell me about the Clarion Institute. How long have you guys been on this?
We've been on it for several years. You can find a lot of information about Grover Norquist and Islamist engagement with both political parties at clarionproject.org. We're also the organization that put out some powerful documentaries, Obsession, The Third Jihad, Iranium. And so this is something that we document every single day.
So Ryan, you guys have been in the trenches for a long time. We brought a lot of attention to Grover Norquist, but I haven't seen anybody. I'm waiting to hear from the NRA. They're finishing up their investigation. We'll see. Now, why do you had am I reading something in your face there on that one?
It's just amusing to me that there continues to be these ongoing investigations over the same thing over and over again. And then Grover Norquist says, oh, well, it's all old information that's been settled. Well, obviously not, when you have people that are still learning about it and see it and say, my goodness, this is something that we have to look into.
Well, I will tell you that I mean, I have a really hard time believing that they're going to come up with something that would be reasonable. I mean, we've done our investigation. There's just too much here. You saw the interview with Grover on this program?
Yes, for sure.
I mean, how does that make any logical sense at all to any thinking person? It doesn't all tie together. It just doesn't work.
And when you look at this list of they said this was the top dozen Muslim and Arab organizations that President Bush was to meet with on September 11th of all days. And when you see how interconnected they are, how the leader of one was a board member for Al-Amudi, and you see how this seems like a large network, but it actually comes down to a small circle. I mean, that's what a political influence operation is. And sometimes the people that get involved with it don't understand the backgrounds of who they're dealing with. And what's so sad about it is that when you look at polls and just even my personal experience, so few Muslim Americans support this type of stuff. Yet here they are. These are the moderates that come to save the day because of their political access.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it. And thanks for all of your work at the Clarion Project. And I urge you to go to theclarionproject.org and look at all of their work and make a decision for yourself. And it is time that we as Americans stand up for the truth because nobody else is. But you need to be very clear. And the best way to do it is to tell organizations, and the GOP being one of the first stops, I'm not going to be involved with you. As long as you're involved with these people who are running what appears to be an influence program for the Muslim Brotherhood, we're clear on who the Muslim Brotherhood is. You may not be, but until you are clear that the Muslim Brotherhood is a very dangerous operation, can't give a dime to you. It's time to put your focus on the people who will actually move. The Republic's life depends on it. Thanks, Ryan. Back in a minute.